Hello, you are listening to the Mets in the UK podcast, your home for Mets content in the UK. You can catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and all good podcast hosts. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and X at Mets in the UK, or you can use the hashtag MITUK to get involved. Now, this evening, the full crew is back, joined by Toria, who is no longer on a train with dodgy Wi-Fi. How are you doing this evening, Toria?
I am much more stable in one place, not moving with slightly more secure Wi-Fi. I'm all good. Sun's been shining today. Makes everything better.
Of course, it's been fantastic. Also joined by Tracey. Evening, Tracey. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, my dear?
I am good. And then Joe, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm riding the wave of being a winner.
Yes. For those of you not watching the video version, Joe is sporting a Newcastle United shirt who finally, after 70 years of hurt, have finally lifted a domestic trophy. Great news if you're a Newcastle fan. We'll say hello to Darren as well whilst we're here. If Darren's listening,
Yeah.
shout out to Darren.
Great news if you're a Mets fan as well, because I think I'm convinced this is just the start of it this year. Mets and X.
Yeah.
I wonder what the odds would have been on that as a double bet.
Yeah, should have done that, shouldn't I? Next year.
Worth a fiver, isn't it?
Yeah, cheeky pound.
Please gamble responsibly.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got everyone back. We will, of course, dive into the Mets games, starting things off as we always do. Spring training still very much underway. Lots going on over the last week. Starting off with Mets beating the Cardinals 2-0. 4 perfect innings from Blackburn, Lindor, and William Lugo with the runs. Not Seth Lugo. I did a double take when I saw Lugo scoring the run. The panic there. The Mets then played the Red Sox, losing that one 3-2. Peterson was solid. Diaz and Stanek had scoreless innings. Nimmo returned from his knee issues. He had a hit in his at-bat, which is good. The Mets then went on to play the Cardinals, which finished a 3-3 tie. Senga gave up 2 runs over 3 and a bit innings pitched. Soto hit a home run and got an RBI, and there was a very wayward pitch that allowed the Mets to score their third. The Mets then played the Nationals, losing that one 4-1. Holmes pitched into the 5th, only giving up 2 runs in that. Kranick struggled for the first time during spring training. Nimmo played as DH. There we go. And on the
Who's your nickname if you plays DH?
On the Saturday game, Mets played the Astros, losing 5-0. McGill gave up 4 in what was quite a dull game. I think we can all be honest about that one. The Mets also that same day played the Nationals in the spring breakout game. If you're new to this with Mets, it's basically all of the prospects and the youth playing a special game, sort of show off their skills. Jonah Tong was highlighted as the star of the game. He pitched 2 innings, gave up a hit, no earned runs, and 3 strikeouts over 2 innings. Nick Morabito got 2 RBIs. Ryan Clifford hit a 2-run home run, which was a monster of a home run if you've seen the video online. He was named in MLB Pipeline's all-spring breakout first team, so kudos to him for his performance. Boston Barrow hit a home run. Kevin Parada went 2 for 3 at the plate and got a run as well. Overall, quite a successful game for those young prospects on that. The Mets then did a split game with 2 squads playing at the same time. They lost 2-0 to the Rays. Canning was impressive over 4.2. Scoreless innings for Nunez and Buto. And then at the same time, the Mets also played the Marlins, winning that one 6-5. RBIs for Alonso, Canario, and Tyrone Taylor. Mixed outing for Blackburn in that one over the 4 innings he pitched. One of the split games, we did see Jesse Winker leave the game with cramp in his calf, according to Mendy. But apparently, according to Jesse, he's absolutely fine. No need to panic.
Yes.
Keeping everything crossed. So, Joe, in-depth analysis.
Oh, right, you ready? How long we got?
Week.
Dipped in and out of it this week, guys, must say. But I think Canning, I've been impressed with Canning still. Pretty mentioned it before, but he's been looking good. So that's the extent of my in-depth analysis for this week. Goodbye.
No, it's fair analysis. We'll cross to the canning expert, Tor.
Yeah. He's been great, hasn't he? He's been really good. No, seriously, I've kind of been on the canning train, and I keep saying he is inconsistent. He's got solid stuff. He's not flashy. He's not funky. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he's solid when he's on it. He's inconsistent, and it looks like, I was hoping that coming to us, and it's not going to happen overnight. But it's been really encouraging to see. I've still been holding back throughout spring training and saying that, you can't judge. I've been the same with Holmes. You can't judge them on a few innings here and there. But there is no denying that he's been solid. And he had a really good stretch yesterday as well, which was the most encouraging thing as well. He got a decent number of pitches in, really great performance. And in his numbers for spring training, full stop, have been incredible. He's got a less than 1 ERA, which is, it's pretty impressive. And so, those who may have been doubting him, not mentioning any names, Tom, just watch him make our starting rotation.
He could be the solid foundation, couldn't he? Just keep it chilled, just plow on through, get the pitches in.
Exactly.
I'm going to eat some humble pie on this. Yes, I had my doubts. He wasn't great last year. I think we can all admit, I think even you, Tor, would admit that he wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wasn't great last year. This seems to be another one of those signings that David Stearns is particularly good at, where it's low risk, high reward. The pitching lab is clearly doing its thing. It's not going to suddenly turn him into a Cy Young winner where he's going to be the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, watch him go and do that now. Now I've said that.
Yeah. Well, we'd all love that.
Ultimately, if you can get a bit more out of him than what he had last year, and that seems to be what we've seen so far. It's spring training. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. These are not serious competitive games. Yeah, let's not get carried away. However, we have seen the pitching lab work. And if we can improve him to the point where he is a serviceable member of the bullpen or the rotation, great. I'll hold my hands up there and I'll say I was wrong. But at the same time, it's spring training, so I'm not going to get too carried away just yet. Is that better?
I'll take it.
Okay, fine. We'll take it. Okay. Tracey, have you been watching any Mets this week?
I've not caught many, but been busy with life and stuff. But it's been good to see the pitching start to ramp up a little bit, and the pitching lab. Can we just praise that once more? It's something that all teams need to have, if they don't already. Which I think we were one of the first to introduce it. No, we don't want them to have it, but
they'll catch on if it works. well, really well.
Yeah, because we've taken pitches that are sort of a bit dull, a bit decidedly average, and we've made them better versions of themselves in terms of the pitching abilities, more consistency, maybe throwing in a new pitch here and there. And it's a great thing. And yeah, can we just stop with the injuries now, please?
Yeah, that would be lovely. It was a bit heart in mouth seeing Winker go down yesterday. I was like, not him too, no. But let's hope that is as nothing as they say it is, and they're just trying to not make it
get it done early. Little things
get it out of the way.
I know.
That's the better way to be as well. If we're going to get these injuries, it's better to have them now. Similarly, we were saying before about not getting carried away with the pitching in spring training. Like you mentioned, Tom, we've had some dull games. We've had games where we lost. I said yesterday, you know, the result at Clover Park, obviously we won the other game against the Marlins, but you know, at Clover Park, it didn't matter about the result, right? That not only was Canning good, Buto and Nunez came in and were both really good as well. So it was all about the pitching there. In the other games, you know, we've had positives in all of these spring training games, even in the not so great. Of course, Rosie comes to say hello. We've, you know, there's been it's spring training for a reason. You know, we've been trying things out and we've been having players getting back up to speed. It was interesting hearing them talk about how Brandon Nimmo works through spring training, how he doesn't have a number of games or a feel that he goes for. It's a number of at-bats that he has in his head. And all of the players will work through similar versions of that for themselves to get themselves where they want to be. And this is where they'll try a different grip or a different stance. It's where the pitchers will throw a different pitch. And so, you know, we've got to get through it. The key is getting them up to fitness, getting them facing some live batters for the pitching and some live pitches for the batters. Just getting through it and seeing what we've got. And then, of course, we're using it as an opportunity to see some of the other boys that we may need to fill some of those roster spots and cover some of those injuries.
Mm-hmm. Can I throw in a quick question to you guys? Where do you see Paul Blackburn fitting in at the moment? Because I'm a bit meh.
That's a lovely segue into the next bit. The Mets were actually discussing this. We've had conversations from Mendy about the rotation. There's talk of McGill being in the rotation and the Mets using Blackburn in the bullpen, either as a long reliever or just spot innings to start the season. What are our thoughts on that?
Exactly my question.
I mean, honestly, I think I'd prefer for it to be switched. I think I'd feel more comfortable with Blackburn starting and McGill in the pen. At this point, given they've both had mixed outings, you can't really split them. But I think it's going to come down to who's fittest, and it's probably more of a loyalty thing, that choice, than anything else.
I think I'm going to agree with you there. I'd rather it was switched. I think whilst he comes across as a nice person, I think we've seen enough of Tyler McGill to know what you're going to get from him, where, you know, he'll have a 5-inning outing and one of those innings will be absolute carnage where he just loses it, gets loads of people on base. We see lots of walks. And then he sort of rallies back and comes back into the game again. And I know he's done a bit of talking about, you know, he needs to be more consistent, but I feel like we've had this from him before. And it's good that he's got a laid back attitude and that this is not phasing him, which is great, especially in a market like New York and the pressure that comes with that. But I just feel like there's only so many times you can tell someone to step up before you just think,
There doesn't seem to be that next level, does there? It's like plateaued and it's like not going anywhere.
I think it's that frustration, isn't it? Like you're waiting for him to kick on and you're like, oh, just got one more chance. And it just doesn't seem to happen for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether, you know, it's him. I think you're right, Tor. I think it will be him out of loyalty. I don't know. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. McGill or Blackburn, who would you rather have in the starting rotation?
Tracey's being unusually quiet.
Tracy's got thoughts.
Oh, go on.
I'm going to disagree with you.
No.
I think McGill, he pitched himself into trouble, then pitched himself back out of trouble. And you, like you say, you know what you're getting with McGill. And I think we need that consistency at the moment because you know what you're going to get from him. Blackburn, I would probably see as a long man in the pen to start off with. God forbid there are more injuries, but he could ramp up to be a starting pitcher if need be.
Yeah, similar to Buto.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think, as we've said before, it's good that we've got these options. There's the depth there, and we're not relying on one person and burning out the bullpen early on in the year. We've mentioned injuries a little bit. Recapping the news, we saw last week Jeff McNeil has got an oblique strain, out for 3 to 4 weeks. We'll park that one and come back to it. There's a question to do with that. On a positive note with injuries, Sean Manaea is now clear following an MRI. He's not pitching yet. It's ramping up, throwing, basics at this point, but it's good that he's back.
Yep.
Good that he's all clear. Steve Cohen had a bit of a boost with his Metropolitan Park proposal. It's been approved by the NYC Council. This doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to, start work tomorrow. It's another step in the right direction for it. There's still discussions going on about the casino that he wants to build there. It's not final yet, but it's the next step for Cohen to get that area around Citi Field developed and improved. Clay Holmes has been named as the opening day starter, something I think we can all agree is the right decision based on who's healthy and ready to go at the moment. Jose Butto has a minor groin issue, but he did pitch in some of the games, so I think the Mets are just being careful with that. Brandon Nimmo should be ready for opening day. The Mets have said they are trying to ease him back in. He's still dealing with plantar fasciitis and it's caused his knee issues, and he's not fully fit, Brandon. So I think the Mets easing him back in is the right thing to do. It's probably he's going to be a DH rather than playing in the outfield, but the Mets have options for the outfield, so we should be good there. Speaking of injuries, Ronnie Mauricio, coming back from multiple knee operations and injuries, is not going to play this spring training, according to Mendy. This is not a setback thing, Mendy said. It's just a case of being cautious, easing him back in and doing it right. I think if we look at this sensibly, it's the right thing to do, especially the injuries that Ronnie's had. I don't think we're likely to see him even hint at a call-up until after the All-Star break at the earliest. Lots of AAA time for him. Like I said, Mets discussing the possibility of McGill in the rotation, Blackburn in the bullpen. The Mets made some roster moves. They've reassigned a few players to the minor league camp. So Luis de los Santos, the utility infielder, has gone down, which is one out of the running for that infield role. Anthony Gose, left-hand pitcher. Joey Menzies is infielder. He's gone as well. Sean Reed Foley is now fully in the minor league camp. And catcher Chris Williams, who was one of the ones vying to be the backup to Luis Torrens, he's also gone down. He's out of the running. On a positive note, Brandon Nimmo has been nominated for the Lou Gehrig Memorial Award for all of his community work with the Mets Foundation and other bits and pieces. And we saw a story come out of the breakout game about one of the Mets pitchers that's in the system, Ryan Lambert, who, in an effort to bulk up, has been drinking 30 raw eggs a day for a month. Tracey is looking at the thought of that one. In an effort to bulk up 30 raw eggs a day for a month. Lambert has been talking about his pitch, topping out 102 miles an hour, saying that he is someone that thrives under pressure situations and he hopes to develop that further. Obviously, we wish him nothing but caution. Velocity does not always...
It's not always your friend,
the longevity of your arm. That man is headed for Tommy John, I'm going to call it now. Lots has gone on over the last week. Ultimately, we're now down to 2 questions around the news. Who is the backup catcher going to be? We're now down to Senga, not Kodai Senga.
Senga, the West Country Senga.
Not Senga.
There we go. And Jackson Reitz. It's between the two of them on who's likely to get that one. With Jeff McNeil being out, we've now kind of got a situation where we need an infield utility role, which looked like Brett Beatty was a lock to get. but he's played a couple of games at second base with Jeff being out. There's still the question around Acuna. Is it Acuna at second base? Beatty is the infield utility role. Is that the other way around? We also need to remember there's Donnie Walton, who's still not been sent down, still kicking around the team. Could he pick up that role and Acuna goes down, or could Beatty go down? Either way, let us know in your comments down below who should be the backup catcher to Luis Torrens, who should get the infield utility role, and who would you like to see start at second base whilst Jeff is out injured. That's lots from me. So news-wise and questions, Tracey, let's start with you.
I want to see Hayden Senga get the backup catch job because it's just a feel-good, sweet story. If you've not read it, there was a story released by MLB, I think it was earlier this week. Apparently, he works in Whole Foods, the supermarket in the US, during the off-season to basically pay his own way, because being a minor league player does not pay very well at all. And there are lots of expenses that come with being a professional ball player, which if you've got a big contract, you can absorb that cost, not so much as a minor league player. And apparently Glenn Sherlock rang him during the off season to have a chat. And he's like, I'm sorry, Glenn, I'm going to have to call you back, because he was working a shift.
That's so cute.
And I'd like to see nice guy finish first for a change.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just a sweet feel good story. And for the other question, I think Beatty second, and I'm not sure about the utility infielder.
Ooh, that's interesting. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Second base, the bits I have seen in the last week or so, I've seen Brett Beatty play there and look a bit hesitant. Like, that's like he's trying to stay chilled, but he's maybe taking a bit too much time to react and do things. Like, I like Acuna because I like the relationship he's got with Lindor. They seem to be on a good wavelength, so I'd probably say him for that. Catchers, I don't know about the catchers. My in-depth analysis is not stretching to that this week, but and more importantly, the question you've missed, Brandon Nimmo, beard or no beard? Think about that one.
I'm team beard for obvious reasons.
He's like a very butch, isn't he? We liking that?
Very manly.
Do you think it's going to increase his power and aggression and all that stuff?
Maybe he needs to shave it off, and then he wouldn't be injured.
Pressure on his whatever is wrong with
Yeah,
his
get rid of
knee.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All good. Toria, what about you?
Well, I mean, I'm still reeling from 30 raw eggs.
That can't be good for your insides, can it?
No.
I'm all about protein, but I cannot just no under no circumstances.
Slippery.
However, I think Beatty might get the shout at second base. I don't disagree, Joe. I think he has looked at times a little hesitant, but I think he has more experience overall. He's used to being up with the guys more. There's still an argument that I think it's going to come down to who will get more out of not being there over who will get more out of being there. And I think Brett's probably the one. I think for backup catcher, yeah, I'm totally with Tracey, and for the exact same reasons. I can't see past Senga just because I think it's lovely. And that's not to say that Reitz hasn't got merits, and we've seen him. And I'm sure that he would do a great job. And let's be honest, we're talking about backup to Torrens. Torrens is going to play most of the games, so we're talking about someone who we don't really need to worry about them offensively, because they'll be there those odd days that they come in. They're there to do their catching job, right? So I like the idea of it being Senga. And utility brings us to Donovan/Donnie Walton, who, as we've mentioned, so he's intrigued me throughout spring training in that he is just around. and they seem to like him. He's been popping up here, there, and everywhere, doing a solid job, not really doing anything wrong, not doing anything spectacular, but doing his job. And when you're looking for utility, that's the kind of player that you need. He's got experience. He's got experience at all of the infield positions, except maybe first base. I don't think I've seen much of him at first base, but he's definitely done second, short, and third. So I would not be surprised to see him stick around and make that spot. And from what we've seen throughout spring training, it'd be hard to argue against it.
I think with the first base, it's worth noting that in a pinch, Vientos could switch to first base. You could put him at third. That fixes that. Or Beatty could go to third. There's room for maneuver there. I think on the infield sort of thing, I think you're right. I think Brett Beatty's he's a lock now that Jeff's out for 3 to 4 weeks. He's a lock for one of those two roles. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was Walton, purely because I've got a feeling that if Jeff's out for 3 to 4 weeks, there's a bit of ramp up time after that. But the Mets are probably looking at it as that's better time for Acuna to be playing regularly in AAA rather than spot appearances off the bench in the majors for his development. Whereas Walton, I feel, probably, like you said, could slot into that, seems to be getting on with the guys, and it's probably going to be more happy to just sit there and have those odd bit part roles in the games. Catcher wise, the Senga story is lovely. I'm not denying that for 1 second. I think it's worth noting that Reitz actually has major league catching experience on his name, which might go in his favor. Like you said, though, Tor, we're talking a handful of games, if that. Both Terens and whoever the backup catcher is probably going to be 9th on the batting, so you're not looking at them to come in and rake in the same way that Alvey would. It's without sounding like Keith Hernandez, if they've got the defensive fundies there and they can throw people out, that's what they're looking for, isn't it? It's
simple. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Let's stop people from trying to steal a base or to calling a semi-decent game, and I think you're off there. The thing that Senga has in his favor is he's been in the organization longer, so he might know some of the pitchers a little bit better. But it's definitely interesting. It's an interesting thing to be keeping on in these last few games that are coming up for spring training.
For the record, there's nothing wrong with sounded like Keith Hernandez. Just saying.
Okay.
We love Keith.
We all do. We love Keith. It's also worth noting the baseball season did officially kick off today. The Dodgers and the Cubs playing out in Tokyo. Dodgers winning the game 4-1. I don't think the Cubs realized it counted as a game. They didn't really tell us. Did any of you watch the game?
Not really. I dipped in and out.
I didn't, but I do have something to say about the media coverage afterwards by certain outlets.
Go on.
There are some outlets who shall remain nameless that have it. Yeah, the one we talked about earlier. Yeah, that have a definite bias towards it. Well, let's say anyone but the Mets.
It's really upsetting.
Fox by any chance?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're like, yeah, I don't know if it was meant to be tongue in cheek or what, but it's like, yeah, the Dodgers are still on track for 162-0, and it's just like, but there are reporters that work for organizations like that one that would be like, yeah, but it's the Mets. I told you they'd be rubbish all along, and the injuries are all their own fault. But then when the Mets are good, they're like, yeah, but I told you that it could happen. And it just gets on my goat a little bit.
Quite early to get that annoyed, Trace. Come on, chill. Come on.
Whilst Tracy's in this mood, I'm going to mention hats. I'm going to stop there. Tracy, on the hats.
No.
What's your favourite hat this week?
We have a new
tit hat
contender for our Hall of Shame. Sorry, Mets, but what the hell is this Minecraft movie cap? And I get that it'll appeal to the youth, the kids, maybe bring in kids that wouldn't be coming to a game otherwise because you have to buy a special event ticket for it. But I don't get it. I might just be too old for this, but my brain just nah.
If you've not seen this, the Mets have Minecraft movie night at Citi Field, Friday, April 18th. You can get a limited edition speciality Minecraft movie cap with a special event ticket.
Coming to eBay near you soon.
Yeah.
Other auction sites are available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vintage.
It's worth a look on the Mets Twitter page. I think
Still better than the Texas one, though, isn't it?
Well, you couldn't get much worse than that one.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't get it.
You're not going to be racing over there to add that one to
No.
your collection?
No. Yeah,
I just,
safe
you
to
just
say
want that
it
one.
wouldn't.
You just need this spring training cap ready, don't you?
Yeah, see, they might have it at Met's house, and I'm going in 2 weeks. So
Yeah. Pick one of those up instead. Much better.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll end the pod. Thank you, as always, Toria, Tracey, and Joe for joining. All that leaves me to say is, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching along. If you've enjoyed the pod, give it a like, a share, a comment, all that good stuff, so we can get this content out to more people across the UK and beyond. And as always, all that leaves us to say is, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.